Sometimes you'll need to evaluate what you're working on in motion to see if you're on the right track. You can simply tap the spacebar and After Effects will try to play a clip as fast as it can, and in some cases that may actually be real time. And you can scrub around to get a little bit of an idea as well. But in many cases your results will not be full speed, and you'll want to generate a RAM preview to see things in full motion. A RAM preview calculates a range of frames and stores those frames in RAM, where they can usually play in real time. You control this with the Preview panel, usually located up here. If it's gone for some reason, select it from the Window menu to bring it back. The first 5 buttons here are really navigational tools. These are a quick way to advance or move back a frame at a time, jump to the beginning or end of a work area, or simply try to play the comp. It's the last 3 buttons here that are really relevant. And the most important one is the far right-hand button, which generates the actual RAM preview. By default, the preview occurs within the work area. And by default, that means your whole comp. But you can adjust the work area to be anything you like. The work area is indicated by this heavy bar at the top of the timeline, which you can drag around and adjust easily. As you generate the preview, you'll see that the time marker proceeds across the timeline, and a little green line appears to indicate that these frames are stored in RAM. These will also appear automatically as you work in After Effects, so if a cached frame already exists, After Effects will simply skip over it when generating a RAM preview. Once the work area is complete, or After Effects available RAM has filled up, the preview will start to play, and you'll see the results at full speed. By default, a preview will loop, but you can also make it ping-pong, which means it plays forwards and backwards if that's useful, or just play through once, but most people find looping to be the most practical. There are also options here to speed up a particularly slow preview by lowering the preview resolution, or even skipping frames. Now these may be handy, but you don't necessarily want to change these values all the time. So After Effects also offers settings for a Shift RAM preview. This is just what it sounds like. You hold the Shift key down when you invoke the preview, and it renders according to the settings you've put in this panel. For example, half resolution and every other frame. See how much quicker this renders than the previous test? The last 2 switches here are pretty self-explanatory. Full screen is just what it sounds like. And From Current Time means that instead of honoring the work area, After Effects will preview forward from the current time marker. This can be useful in very long projects, and I tend to keep this switch turned on. But it also ignores the out point of a work area, so you have to be mindful of that. It's worth mentioning that if you're working at a higher bit depth, After Effects allows you to work at 8, 16, and 32 bits per channel, your RAM preview will fill up correspondingly more quickly. So you can only render into RAM a quarter of the number of frames in 32-bit as you can in 8-bit. Fortunately, RAM is pretty reasonable these days, so load up if you can. And lastly, there are keyboard shortcuts for all of these functions, although they can be a bit confusing since there are so many different keyboard layouts these days. For a full-size keyboard, just hit the 0 key on the numeric keypad to start a RAM preview, and the period key on the keypad to start an audio-only preview, which can be really handy, and there's not even a button for that in the panel. It's also worth noting that on Mac laptops and on the smaller Mac Bluetooth keyboards that come with an iMac, there's no keypad. So in that case, you can use Control-0 on the Mac to start the preview, and Control-M on the Mac to start an audio preview.